Hey everybody, welcome to the Give Them Glitter podcast, episode 2.
Episode 2.
Yes, my name is Joshua. I'm joined by my wife, Leslie.
What's up?
And we just wanted to say here at the top a big thank you to all of you who listened and engaged with episode 1. It means so much to us that you would join us as we start this journey of podcasting and really building this community with family. So we just want to say thank you.
Yes, thank you to everybody who watched, to subscribe, to listen, to clicked like on a reel or
Commented.
TikTok, commented. Thank you so much. The engagement really helps.
Yeah, so we really appreciate it, and we hope it's the first of many podcast episodes that you enjoy. So let's jump in to episode number 2. And this one, we're going to call it, it's more of a question than really just a title. And it stemmed out of conversations that we were having, kind of feeling like, are we a better parent to our second than to our first? And so I want to frame this conversation first with pointing out this is not about giving preference.
No.
This is about preparedness.
Yes.
So we're talking about feeling specifically like we're a lot more prepared as parents, we're a lot more ready as parents for the second than we are for the first. A good example of that, feel free to give an example as well if you have one, but one that I can think of is kind of the idea of helicopter parenting.
Yeah.
So like everyone is aware of that term, and it's almost like a punchline for first-time parents who are like the helicopter parents, and everyone's got to like use hand sanitizer and like check for the draft on the floor and all the stuff. And then with the second one, it's like, you want to hold this baby? Here you go.
Yeah, it's kind of like with our first, when we were bringing him home, he was, a normal newborn baby size. And we put him in these socks that in the picture look like boots almost. They are huge on him. And he was born in the summer. So there was really no need for the socks. But we were just like overprotective, and we were like, his feet are going to get cold. He can't regulate his body temperature. Panic. We put socks on him, and they look huge. We have a photo of him in his car seat for the first time. And he looks like he's wearing giant white boots.
Yeah. You would have thought we were having a Bigfoot baby.
Yes. Yes. His feet look giant.
And I'm pretty confident for the second one, no socks.
No.
Yeah. And so it's like, he was born in the summer too, and it's like, he'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, and it was like 100 degrees out, so I don't know what we were thinking, but we were just like, we got to protect him at all costs.
I know. So it's a lot more about different ways in which you feel more prepared, not just for like the silly things like putting them in socks versus not in the summer right after they're born, right? But also we're going to dive in a little deeper to like just kind of going into having the baby and some myths and some truths, and even things like facing toddlerhood and beyond. So that's really what we're getting at, is more of this idea of feeling a lot more like a vet. Like you're a veteran parent in a lot of ways with those things, and there's just a comfort level. And it kind of begs the question, are there ways in which we're better parents to the second than we are to the first? But I also know there's a lot of second-borns, and you can testify to this, who would say, well, my older sibling got a much better version of my parents than I did.
Yep. I can attest to that. Sorry, Mom and Dad, but it's true. Yeah. A lot of second-borns end up feeling kind of forgotten about, like they're leftovers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the family still kind of evolves around the firstborn. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this conversation. We would encourage you, like, drop a comment if you're watching on YouTube or come across a reel on a social media platform. Kind of let us know, like, your experiences and your perspective on this. We would really love to hear that and have you contribute a bit to this dialogue. So I want to start out with a bit of we'll call it kind of like sinking or swimming, if you will, especially first compared to the second. So one thing to just point out off the top that is very unique to having a second is it is the only time where you double your head count of little people.
Unless you're one of those people that has like twins and then another set of twins or something like that. Which, God bless you if you have.
Or if you're having like quintuplets or sextuplets. Yeah. And then you're probably getting a TLC show. Yeah. And so for the rest of us who are not getting TLC family documentaries, first to second, you double in head count. I heard, this is for the dads out here, someone explained it one time that with the first one, you have the advantage of being able to do a double team. With the second one, you got to go man to man. And then anything after 3, that's just zone defense. It doesn't really matter. And I have heard from a lot of parents, especially parents who have had 3 or 4, talk about how really and truly number 1 to 2 was the hardest transition. Yes. Because even going 2 to 3 and 3 plus was much easier. Probably because of what we're talking about, how you just feel like a lot more of a vet, even in being more of a vet to multiple. Yeah. Right. And so yeah, you're doubling head count. It's the only time that happens. So we got to like just acknowledge like that's the real deal. That's a real thing right there. Another thing, kind of sink versus swim with the first and the second. With the first, you can speak to this, from your perspective. I know for me, there was a lot of times leading up to when he was born when I was like, oh shit, I don't feel like we're ready. Yeah.
I mean, and he was a honeymoon baby. So if you didn't see the first episode, he was a honeymoon baby. So we were not prepared. No. We had planned to become parents like 2 or 3 years later. And so I just remember like finding out we were pregnant and being like, I know nothing about having a baby. What do you need for a baby? So it was just like a deep dive into research for 9 months of like, where do we give birth? How do you give birth? What does birth look like? We watched so many documentaries on, he's like traumatized from some of these documentaries. Shout out to Ricky Lake, Business of Being Born. It's a must watch, especially if you're going to go the midwife crunchy route like we did. But we did not feel ready. Even like leading up right up to his birth, it was like, oh my God, we're going to be responsible for a person.
And there's so many layers to that, right? Like on one hand, you don't feel ready because you've never had a kid before, right? On another hand, you don't feel ready because you've never given birth before. Right. You've never been through a pregnancy before, so each month is like new. Each week, everything is new. Yeah. Even though every pregnancy is different, you hear that a lot. But like, just the whole experience, from both perspectives, and then even just with like all the things, like oh my God, there are so many things that people say you got to get this, you need this, you need that, you need this, like. I mean, obviously in the United States, I'm not sure if you're listening outside of the United States, if this is necessarily true where you are, but in the United States, it's such a consumer driven culture that it's like, you need just all the things, you need all the gadgets, even something like, I mean, I remember growing up, there was one way to get boogies out of a kid's nose. It was that little like sucker.
Yeah, little bulb syringe.
Yeah. And you just shoved it in there and sucked them out. And now you go and it's like a section. Yeah. There's like 20.
Yeah, they're electronic and stuff now.
And it's like, and so there's just like, it really is in many ways an overwhelming experience. Maybe for us, it was super overwhelming just because we weren't like, we didn't go into it being like, this is what we wanted. It happened and we adapted. Yeah. But I mean, I would even think still, even if it is more planned, even if it is something more you want, like that shit's just a lot. It's a huge
It's a huge adjustment.
Yeah, it's a huge life
transition.
Yeah. Yeah. If you like, unlike us, did have a baby more kind of like at an ideal time, later planned, like let us know in the comments. Was it something that, you know, how big of an adjustment? It felt like, I mean, rightly so for us, like our world like had been turned upside down and we were just trying to like get our feet on the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot. There's so much there. The other one, you had mentioned this. Yeah.
Yes. Perspective of toddlerhood. So I remember when our oldest was going, so, you know, raise your hand, use a little raised hand emoji in the comments, wherever you are on social media or YouTube, if you experienced the three-nager with your kids. Because when we were kids, when we were kids, it was all about terrible twos. You always heard about terrible twos. Oh my gosh, the terrible twos. So I was like waiting for it. I was like, okay, once he turned like 18 months, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Terrible twos. It's going to be insane. Okay.
It's going to be terrible.
It's going to be terrible. We're going to do it. And then he turned 2 and nothing happened. I was like, we're rocking this parent thing. Like, we're experts. We've got it in the back. He's great. And then around like 2 3/4, something started to shift. I'm like, what's happening? And then 3 happened and it was like, where has my child gone? He's been abducted by aliens and replaced with a pod person. Like, something is happening. And I remember being like, is this going to last forever?
Have we broken our child?
Yes. Have we failed already? Like, we messed up already? What the fuck? Like, I thought we had more time to mess this up.
We did it in 3 years record.
Yes. Like, I just remember being panicked because it was like, every day's a battle and you don't know when it's going to end. And I was like, this is going to last forever. And then, you know, 4 or 5 rolls around and they grow out of it and he was fine. And so with the second, I was a lot more calm when 3 hit because I was like, okay, like still hard, but it's not going to last forever. I know it's not going to last forever. And we've witnessed that to be true. And so I was a lot more laid back with our second in that toddler phase because I knew it was temporary.
Yeah. And I think that's something that can be almost misinterpreted as parenting differently or giving preference.
Yeah.
And that's really not what it is. It's like you're saying, it was a lot more about just the fact that like we knew what to expect. Like for both of them, 2 wasn't really that hard.
Yeah.
For both of them, 3 was some tough shit.
Yeah.
And then they both came out of it. And so I think that just it's just perspective, just experience. It's not preference. It's just experience. But it does make you feel like, oh, we're being like a better parent to the second because, I mean, our firstborn, God bless him. I mean, he did come super early on in our relationship, but like he is like the first kind of at everything for us.
Yeah.
There's so many more times with him, even now with him being a bit older, where I just feel like, I don't know what I'm doing or I'm too young for this.
Yeah.
And so there's still a lot of like feeling like a lot more with him, like a rookie, than with the second born, even though we are almost a decade now into parenting.
Yeah.
It like, there's just something unique about that first one and then reaching those first milestones and everything. And so, yeah, it's a unique thing. Another thing, a big difference, first to second is, you know, not everything's an emergency.
Right.
I do remember, God bless the midwife who helped us with the first one.
Shout out to Nikki, Michelle, and Gail.
Yes. Man, that first, so he was born, our oldest was born super early in the morning, and we left about midday. And that night, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was hitting up her. I don't even remember what the text was, but I was texting her questions, and God bless her, she was actually up responding after having been up with us all night the night before. I see now why the more veteran midwives were like, okay, they're first time parents, you can take them because they're gonna ask you a bunch of dumb questions at random times. So she is earning her stripes with us. And so like there was so many questions that we had for like the first week. Like, is this normal? Is this normal? Is this okay? Like, and everything. And then with the second one, that birth, I don't know if you remember this, was really intense and fast.
I remember vividly.
Just a few hours in, and he shot right out. And so both you and him were very tired afterwards. He did not eat legitimately for the first 24 hours.
No, he just slept.
And it wasn't even like that he wasn't latching. He just wanted to sleep. He was just like, y'all don't know what I went through. Like, that shit was crazy. I'm just going to take a nap. And so that's what he did. And we didn't I don't think we called the midwife once. We had like a scheduled follow-up with her, like,
a couple days later.
But like, we just let him sleep. You rested. And then when he is ready, he was ready. And he ate. And he hasn't stopped eating since. And so, and he's literally the snack one too. And so when I say he hasn't stopped eating, it's like eat breakfast, 10 minutes later, Dad, can I have a snack? And so, but there's just a comfort level where it's like, okay, this isn't an emergency. Like,
well, it's one of the things the midwives told us with our first was like, when they're hungry, they'll eat. Like, they're not going to starve themselves. And so I don't
know if we believe that.
No.
The first time.
No, I don't think we believed it. We were like, is he eating enough? Oh my gosh. And we went through some stuff with our kid not eating enough. But with the second, it was like, I don't know, we really believed it. It was like, okay, he'll eat when he's hungry. He was fine. He was like doing all the other stuff he's supposed to do in the first 24 hours. He just wasn't interested in anything else but sleeping, and I don't blame him because that was a lot.
And so there's just a comfort level with things, like one way you see this too, where it's like and this is probably what like really toughens up secondborns, right? Like they come out like learning how to survive young, because like the first one there's tears, parents are like, whoa, what is it? What happened?
What's wrong?
Check everything. Is it an emergency? Should we go to the doctor? I don't know. Let's like Google it. Let's call mom. Second one, it's like, oh, that's not a serious cry. That's not a serious cry.
You really learn the like, I saw a bug cry versus the I've skinned half my leg cry. Like whatever.
So there's that. Just experience, comfort level with that. So there's a lot of those things that are just very different, big contrasts between first and second. We'd love to hear your stories about how, for you, something you've noticed in your parenting style that was different from your first to your second. And kind of in that vein, is like, in some of those areas, do you feel like you're almost a better parent to the second one than you even were to the first? I don't think it's about being a bad parent to the first.
No.
Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you want to be like
a good
parent.
Yeah, it's just inexperience with the first one. Everything is new. Everything's the first time for something.
For everybody involved.
Yes, for everybody
you
involved.
As parents and for them.
So when you have the second kid, even though the second kid is different, like some of the stuff is the same, you know? And so you feel a lot more prepared because you've already done a lot of it before. So let's talk a little bit, and we can spend a little time on this, just at least from our perspective. So we're going to give a few ideas. They're obviously going to be different for everyone. We tried to keep it pretty broad, pretty general, that could be applicable to you guys, but let us know your experiences with this as well. But just some truths about having multiple. I think off the top, we should note that you're never ready. You are never ready for your first or for your second. No, you're just not. You can be prepared, like you can have all the supplies and stuff, but being ready, like,
yeah,
you're just not, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into until
yeah.
you have the kid.
Yeah, because you have a car seat, because you have a crib and diapers and clothes and, you know, a sink, bathtub, like those are like, you're ready to like host a little human.
Yeah. But
you're really never ready. And I think that there is something to be said where we talk a lot about or think about being ready to have a parent in so many ways, in just terms of like financially. Like, are you financially ready to have a kid? You know, there is so much more to having a kid than whether or not you're financially in a place where you're ready to have a kid. Like, it's a lot more than that. Are you ready as a parent emotionally to like develop a human, to learn them? Like,
if you have a partner, is your relationship ready?
Yes.
For a child?
Yeah.
Are you psychologically ready? Yeah.
Yeah, it's way more than the roof over their head and the clothes on their back and the toys that they have. Like, I think we need to go beyond, are you financially ready to have a kid? Yeah. Now, I will give credit. I think there's a lot of millennials out there who think about it different. There are so many people from older generations where it's like, you either had kids before you were ready because you just had kids young, or you reached a certain point in your life when it was like, well, now like it's time to like
steps,
where now it's time to settle down and get married, and now it's time to have kids, now it's time to move to the suburbs, and like all of these things, right? And you're just kind of going through the motions of what society says that here's what you should be doing in your 20s and 30s and 40s and everything. That, like, just because you're 30 doesn't mean you're ready to have a kid. So shout out to, I think there's a lot of millennials now. I mean, statistics show millennials are having kids at a lower rate.
Yeah, at a lower rate and an older age.
And I think that a big driver for that is them understanding, like, this shit's a big responsibility.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
And we got to be ready. It more than just, I got the money to have a kid, even though that seems to be a little problematic now in today's economy. But like, it goes beyond that. And so I do appreciate maturity on so many millennials who are like, I may be 32. I may even be in a long-term relationship, but we're not ready. To your point, like, maybe our relationship's not ready, or we're not ready to have kids. And I think there's wisdom in that. I think that a lot of that comes from lived experience. I mean, so many millennials, you know, come from homes where their parents got divorced and they felt the repercussions of, in a real way, mom and dad were not ready to have myself and my siblings, and we've had to deal with that. And so, it really, you know, millennials, I think, have a little bit different approach on readiness. Obviously, that's a broad stroke. But I think the data also kind of bears that out. Yeah. So you're never really ready for your first or for your second.
No.
So another truth is you will not be twice as tired.
No.
That's a bit of a myth.
Yeah.
You will just be
tired.
Equally as tired.
Yes, you just get used to a homeostasis of tiredness. Yes. Like, you just exist in a perpetually tired state, but it's not twice as tired. It's just tired.
Now, I should caveat this with, obviously, a lot of this is dependent on when you have a second. Like, we know people who, like, the first is like 6 years older than the second. Okay, that you may be more tired then, because at that point, your 6-year-old, there's a really good chance they're probably sleeping through the night, have a regular routine. Yeah. You've gotten back a lot of kind of normalcy in your life. Or if you're a family who maybe has two under two, you know, I don't know.
You might be.
Maybe tired. I would assume you're super tired all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe that is, I think, speaking just in kind of averages, where on average people tend to have a second one about 3 years after a first one. If that's kind of the general case, you're not going to be twice as tired. There's going to be things that are different and adjustments. But you're kind of used to the game now.
Yeah.
You know?
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Another truth. You have to remember that they are at different stages of development. And this is something we talk about with each other and try to like remind ourselves of often.
Yeah, because it's easy to fall into the trap of catering things to one or the other. Like,
very much,
not letting your older one do something because the younger one can't do it, or trying to, get your younger one to be more mature than they are because the first one is able to do some things. And it's like, no, and I've had to remind myself of that lately, to be like, I'm going to let our younger one just be his age. And there's going to be different needs that he has because he's his age. And the older one also has different needs because he's more mature. And so he can tell us when he needs us and when he doesn't, and things like that. Whereas the younger one still needs more hands-on approach. And it's okay that they're at different stages. They're still being loved equally, the same amount. They just have different needs, and that's okay.
And to give you guys an example of this in a very real world way, our boys share a room, and they're 3 years apart and have been going to bed at the same time at 8:00. The oldest came to us and asked if he could go to bed later than his brother. And so we talked to him about it. We came up with the idea like, okay, on non-school nights, you can stay up. So we'll do the bedtime routine. We'll have our story and our song, put little brother down, and then you can go downstairs and stay up with mama and dad. We'll like play a little game. We'll watch a show. And that was like a really good reminder for us, kind of just being in the routine, not even doing anything bad or unintentional, but being in that routine of like, okay, they share a room, they're brothers, they go to bed at the same time. Yeah. Well, the older one can stay up later and would like to stay up later. Yeah. And so now he does on Friday and Saturday nights. He gets to stay up a little bit later with us, and he's loved it. It's been good for him.
And the younger one has not complained.
And the younger one hasn't complained because he's usually asleep. Yeah,
he's ready to go to bed.
And so that was like a really good reminder for me of like, though they're close in age, though there's so much of their life that's the same, they're at different stages of development, and they're going to have different wants and different needs that need to be met. Yeah. And so, and the other thing about that is that's going to be true for the rest of their lives. Like that, like even going into adulthood when maybe there's not the type of developmental stages as you see with like a 2-year-old to a 5-year-old to an 8-year-old to like a 13-year-old, right? Those are very distinct, different developmental stages. And they reach a level of adulthood when they're in their 30s, they're going to both be in their 30s. Yeah. But they will be at different places in life, because they're not going to get in relationships at the same time. If they get married, they're not going to get married at the same time. If they have kids, they're not going to have kids at the same time or have the same amount of kids. And so they're always going to be in different places, not just now when they're little.
Yeah, but even like, when the older one goes to college or does whatever he does post high school, like the younger one's still going to be at home under our supervision. And they're going to have different needs, and that's okay. And again, it's not about loving them, less or more than the other one. It's about like, hey, what do you need at this stage in your life from us?
Yeah. And that kind of goes into like the next idea of from the start, they are different people. Yes. Like we noticed from a very, 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 very young age early. That, the younger one has a different personality than his older one, which is still true to this day. The older one, like his love language is like, he loves physical play. If I wrestle with him and, do stuff like that, play soccer, he loves that. The younger one, like, honestly, I kid you not. If I got up at 6 a.m. and started wrestling with the older one until his bedtime at 8 p.m. And we only took some snacks and potty breaks, that would literally to him be the best day ever.
Yes, that would be his favorite day.
It would be his favorite day. Yeah. The younger one, he loves to wrestle. But like after about 10 minutes, he's kind of like,
He's
okay,
done. He's
this
much
was fun.
more of like a let's snuggle and watch a movie, or let's have a conversation, or
Yeah,
let's sit and play with a toy.
Yes.
Like he's a lot more calm and more quality time.
Yeah, and so one of the things we've learned through the process of having two, and those of you who have multiple, I'm sure you've learned this as well, you know, and especially like those of you who are listening who have multiple that are older, teen years adults, like you've probably seen this super true in your lives with them. Like you have to build a relationship with them individually.
Yeah, a unique relationship with each of them.
Yeah.
Based on what their need, and you're going to kind of tailor your parenting to each of them based on what they need.
Yeah, there's certainly some like standards of a family and commonalities and everything, but because they're their own people, they're going to have different needs at different times and different stages, and you've got to learn their personhood.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, that's been something that, you know, we've been aware of and, you know, try to be sensitive to and grow in, and that's just never going to go away. They're, you know, even as adults, they're going to have different needs that need to be met by us as their parents, based on their personality. Another truth here is that it seems that empathy comes a lot more naturally to the second-born than it does the firstborn.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as a second-born yourself, you can kind of speak to like, that's like the environment you're brought into is having to understand like, hey, I'm not the center of this unit. Yeah.
Because you're coming into a place where there's already 3 or more people in the family unit. And so you're already it's not all about you, because there's another kid there with needs and wants and all that kind of stuff that your parents are already trying to fulfill. And so you never, at least in my experience, I never really had it's all about me feeling. And of course there's exceptions to everything. So, you know, I'm sure there's firstborns out there who were a lot more empathetic, and their younger sibling or siblings were a lot more self-centered or struggled a lot more with empathy. And so there's exceptions to everything, but I think it's a little easier to develop empathy when you are second or third, because you're already not the center of attention.
Yeah.
And then when you're the first, it's a little bit of an adjustment, because even if your younger sibling came at a time that you won't necessarily have any cognitive memories of, you may have an emotional memory of like, at one point in time, it used to just be the 3 of us, me and my parents. And, you know, you may feel some type of way about having to now share the spotlight with your younger sibling, which I think is normal, especially for small children. Like, you know.
Well, and this, you know, is very much, so much of it is driven by your environment, right? And so again, we're speaking like generally, people tend to have that second one like generally 3 years after the first one. You know, like I think of my mom, who's 10 years older than her younger brother. It's just the 2 of them. She's 10 years older than him. In that family dynamic, she's the one who is more empathetic, because she actually was much more of a caregiver to him because of the age difference. And so there was a lot more of like, even him as the second, like he was the baby and the family kind of revolved around him, you know. But I think it is kind of like, it's a generalization, but it's a generalization that I do think fits, where oftentimes the second born can feel like they have to learn empathy and how to read the room and understand others, whereas the firstborn, it's kind of like the center of the universe there. I mean, I even think of like in in The Good Place with Tahani and Camilla.
Yeah.
Tahani's the secondborn, Camilla's the firstborn. Camilla can do nothing wrong. Parents love Camilla. She like sneezes and it's like awesome.
Yeah.
Tahani can do nothing right. And like they are playing on the comedy there of that first and second born dynamic, which is funny in and of itself. Great show, funny show. But it also speaks to, I think, like as parents, you have to be aware of that dynamic, and you have to be intentional about teaching the firstborn empathy, because it's not going to be just as natural to their environment. Generally speaking, again, it could be different depending on the age gap, but it's not going to be just as natural.
Well, and from their perspective, you know, like our oldest was 3 when his brother came. Well, like for 3 years, he got his needs immediately met the moment he had them. Like he never really had to want for anything or wait. You know, when he was upset, we comforted him. When he needed food, we made it. When we, you know, like he got his needs immediately met. Well, then his brother came and it's like, okay, you may have to wait a minute on your snack because we're trying to change a diaper or whatever the case may be. And so over time and it's still a work in progress, but we are teaching our oldest to be more empathetic towards his younger brother. And he's a very kind kid and a very sweet kid with all his friends and stuff. So he's, you know, it's not that he's like a bad person. We just are noticing like sometimes that there are those callbacks to where he expects his needs to be met immediately. And it's like, well, there's another person here that you have to consider.
Yeah, it just is, you see it where like instinctively for the younger one, the idea of empathy just comes more natural. So even something like if you stop by a gas station to get a little candy or a snack, the second one, if the first one's not there, is going to on his own be like, oh, I also want to get something for brother because he wants brother to be included. Whereas that's something that the older one now, he will do that. Yeah. But he was not instinctively doing that. Yeah. And that had to be something that was taught and encouraged and developed in him. And I mean, that may be somewhat triggering for if you're a second born listening to this, like, oh my God, my parents did not do this with my older sibling. And so it's just something that I think you have to be aware of as a parent when you have multiple. Yeah. And some of the things that are just naturally going to come up. And like, that's a natural thing that's going to happen. And it's a great learning and coaching opportunity for the first. And like you said, it doesn't mean the first is a bad kid or a selfish kid, right? Yeah. They have to learn it. Empathy, seeing things from other people's perspective, considering the other person's, you know, needs above your own. That is something that is taught. That's not something that is just instinctive for most people.
And we've all seen that.
Yeah. And so it's not that little kids are inherently like just being selfish and self-centered. It's that so often they were never taught a different way. And so they become that as an adult because it wasn't addressed early on, and to teach them out of it. And it just was not even something that like parents intentionally were like, we're going to raise this one to be like a selfish loser. Like, that's not it. It's like you never taught that out of them to begin with. And so then they do become somewhat conceited and selfish and everything. And so, yeah, obviously there's more dynamics too. Like as you have more, there's a dynamic with the third and fourth and everything. We're really talking about specifically the second born there. Yeah. So empathy, you guys, is something that is taught. We still have to teach it to our second born. Clearly, that is something that we have to teach to our second born. We're not saying like
empathy is something everybody's got to learn.
Yeah. We're just saying that we see naturally that type of stuff comes a little more instinctively to him than it does to his older brother. Yep. So we've been aware of it and coaching it up. So I think it's also worth noting and worth saying for those of you listening that it is okay to feel like you are not identical parents to your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about that. We touched on that a little bit earlier, but your kids have different needs. They're different people. And so one kid may need more coaching in one area than another does, or one may need more hands-on attention in one area than another does. Or, you know, you may have a kid who's very independent and doesn't need a lot of help or reassurance. But then you may have a kid who needs a lot of reassurance and a lot of coaching and things like that. And so your you're going to tailor your parenting approach. Again, like we said, there's general expectations you're going to have in your family. Like one of our general expectations for our kids is to be kind. Like we expect them to be kind people, very generally speaking, kind to each other, kind to us, kind to other people. But they each have their own unique personality and way that they show up in the world. And that requires individualized parenting. Not everything that works with, and we figured that out in toddlerhood, like not everything that works with the first one is going to work with the second one and vice versa. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're giving favoritism or, like it just means that each kid is different and you've got to tailor your approach.
Yeah. And it isn't favoritism. Mm-mm. It really isn't. It's truly like understanding their personality and you're learning. We said this in the first, we're going to say it again. We may say it every episode we ever have, where you are learning who they are as an individual, as they are learning that as well. And there's just personality differences there. And so, like a great example of that is our oldest is much more extroverted than the younger one. And so one of the ways that he receives love is like a quality time that includes an activity. So this past weekend, he spent like the whole day with me on Sunday out in the front yard, working, doing physical labor and getting the flower beds ready for the spring and summer with me. Right. The younger one was out there, I think, for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, then he was ready to go inside.
And then he was like, well, this has been fun. I'm getting a little sweaty and it's kind of hot. I'm going to go inside. But he will, even from a young age, the younger one would like sit and cuddle and watch a movie for like 10 minutes. Whereas our youngest, I said it, the younger one, our older one, he would sit and watch for like 10 minutes. Our youngest, he will sit and like snuggle you and watch a movie with you because he's a little more introverted. He just wants that more like quiet quality time. And that doesn't mean like, just because we maybe don't like sit and snuggle the oldest as much, that doesn't mean he doesn't get love in the ways that he needs and those needs aren't met. It just means we're learning their personalities and his needs are different than his younger brothers and vice versa. And like you said, there's standards. Like we're going to be a family that's kind to each other. You're going to be kind to mom and dad. You're going to be kind to each other. You're going to be kind to friends. Like kindness is a pillar of our family unit. That is a standard we want everyone to meet. But your needs, especially throughout, like we've talked about different developmental stages, they're going to be different. We're going to have to meet those needs and coach those needs up specific to your personality in ways that you can learn and grow and become a really good, kind, loving, healthy version of yourself. That's what we're wanting to develop in them. And so, you're going to parent probably a little bit differently, but I do believe that you can do that without it being something that either one feels like there's favoritism. So, so it's not about favoritism. It's not about preferential treatment. The second born, there's just an experience level. This time around, there's only one newbie to the game. It's the baby. It's the second one. And so it just creates a little bit different of an environment. We could keep talking about this. There's so many different angles with this. So many different, my goodness, the one about, what was it that we talked about? How the being in different stages developmentally. That could be a whole episode. Right there. And so I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I hope you guys were able to like identify with some things and relate to some things. But we would love to kind of hear like your approach to this as parents. How have you approached the second one differently than the first one? Do you still kind of at times feel like a rookie more with the first one than you do with the second one? Do you feel more experienced, more comfortable? We would love to hear your perspective on that and your stories on that. So definitely let us know. Drop a comment and let us know what you think on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to transition a little bit, and we're going to end the show here with a segment that I do hope becomes a bit of a reoccurring segment.
Yes.
We're going to call this segment Kids Keep It Real. So I got this fun little thing the other day. My youngest, his school had donuts with dad in the morning. And as part of that, they gave us a little gift from them. One of the gifts was fun facts about dad. So our youngest here kept it real with some of this stuff, and it's just so funny like that. And so I hope you get a laugh out of this and enjoy it. But we also want to hear your stories about how your kids have kept it real, maybe a little too real. With you. This can be, honestly, I know ours is like he's little, but if it's your older kids, adult kids, teen kids, preteen kids, like, doesn't matter. Kids keep it real. Let us know, put that in the comment. Kids keep it real. Share your story. We want to hear your story. And in the future episodes, we're going to circle back to this and we're going to share your stories. Yes. And so we'll share our stories, but we really would like to share your stories so you guys can hear other people in the community, their funny stories. And I mean, we got to be able to laugh.
Yeah. If you're going to be parenting, you got to be able to laugh. You have to be able to laugh. You need a sense of humor.
You've got it.
Because so much dumb shit happens.
But you got to laugh at it.
You have to laugh. Okay.
So here we go. Fun facts about dad. My dad is blank years old. Now, you guys know, we've said we've had him young, had our kids young. Our youngest my dad is 22 years old. 22. Now, I'm not 22. I'm 32. But I don't know, for him, like, was he trying to say 32 and it maybe just came out 22? Or does he really think I'm just that young? Or maybe this could be him as well. Maybe he's passive aggressive enough to be like, this fucker doesn't know what he's doing. He's like a baby. He's 22. Could be that. Yeah. So I don't know, but he thinks I'm 22. He did get the ones place correct, which makes me think he was maybe thinking 32, but 22. My dad's favorite thing to do is wrestle. I have talked about wrestling. Obviously, that's the oldest love language, so he does see that a lot. I'm assuming he probably thinks, oh, my dad and brother wrestle a lot. He must really like to do wrestling. So dad's favorite thing to do is wrestle. Now, this one's hilarious to me, and I laughed pretty hard when I read this. We do have sports on in this house. We watch a lot of football. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of football. We watch just enough football.
We watch a lot of football.
It's a really healthy, just right amount.
Very large amount of football. It's
just the right amount of football, which may be more for some than others, but it's the right amount of football. We watch basketball and watch golf. Those tend to be the three sports that will find their way onto the television. And so my youngest said, my dad's favorite sport is tennis.
Which I'm like, where, how, why? I don't know if you've ever played a tennis match.
We haven't. I think maybe once in my life I have. No shade on tennis.
Yeah.
It's, it's a good sport.
Tennis is great. I have watched it before, but I don't know that we've watched it with our kids around.
No. I'm surprised he even knew what it was.
Yeah.
I think what it was, and I was asking him about this, I think he was trying to say Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because big Tennessee Vols fans, go Vols, love us some Tennessee football, Tennessee sports. We love that. And I think he was trying to say my dad's favorite sport is Tennessee.
Yep, Tennessee.
And he's
not wrong.
In that sense, he is not wrong. He's keeping it real. He knows me. I think that's what he was trying to say. And then the teacher heard that as tennis. They were like, Tennessee? That's not a sport. Like, actually, in this house, it is. It is a sport. Now, this is my personal favorite. And this is one where I legitimately have no idea where this came from. My dad's favorite food is raw meat. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know how that even, like, where he would think that. The only raw meat we eat is when you and I,
Yes.
no kids, go on a sushi date.
Yeah.
We don't take the kids specifically because we want to enjoy that sushi.
Yes.
And we don't want little distractions. We
Yeah.
want to just take in that delicious sushi.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. We don't even eat like steaks.
No.
We'll do some ground beef. We'll do burgers.
Mm-hmm.
We cook our chicken.
Yeah.
We cook our shrimp.
Yeah.
Just like, where did raw meat?
Yeah. Where in the world did raw meat come from?
I don't know. And then he goes on. He follows that up with, my dad is really great at wrestling. Again, and so he's like really hyping me up here as like this, like,
You're a He-Man.
I'm a He-Man, manly man.
Yeah.
Where I wrestle and then like do my recovery.
All you do is wrestle on a raw meat diet and watch sports.
And watch sports. Like, wow, he's making me sound some type of way.
Yeah.
And I'm just 22. We'll see how that raw meat diet plays out over the coming decades.
Yeah.
All right. So those are the funny ones. Now the rest of it actually gets a little bit sweeter, which I appreciate. He goes on to say, my dad is funny because he loves to kiss me. I think what this is coming from is the beard, especially in the neck and especially in the belly areas, causes a lot of giggles.
Yeah.
And so he's funny when he gets those tickly kisses. My favorite thing to do with my dad is hug and kiss. So sweet. That's also one of my favorite things to do with him. I love it when my dad walks with me and Dolly. Dolly's our dog.
Yes.
So he loves, again, that quieter quality time. Let's just walk and talk.
Slow.
And yeah, he loves
Simple.
that. Loves to hug and kiss. Super sweet. I know my dad loves me because, again, he hugs and kisses me. I do that a lot. With both of them still. And that's he's receiving it. I feel good about it. He's receiving it. And then he says, I love my dad because he loves me. So if you're concerned about the health and safety of all these kisses with the raw meat diet,
Yeah, the salmonella transmission.
Valid. That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
I as well am concerned about that as well, but otherwise, first half, he's just this, like, like you said, he's this He-Man who just like sports and
Pounds his chest,
wrestles
eats
and
raw meat.
And then the second half is like just a big old softie who hugs and kisses me all the time
With his salmonella mouth.
I love those post-wrestling salmonella kisses. So yeah, that's him keeping it real about Dada. So want to hear your stories about how your kids keep it real. Drop those in the comments, whether you're watching this on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Drop that comment about how your kids keep it real, and maybe we'll be able to share those funny ones in future episodes. Would love to hear that from you. So there we go.
Yeah.
Second episode in the books. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Would love to connect with you on social media. You can follow us at Give Them Glitter. Again, that's at Give Them Glitter across all social media platforms. We got the TikTok, the Instagram, the YouTube accounts, all at Give Them Glitter. And then on Instagram, on our at Give Them Glitter Instagram account, you can actually find my personal handle and Leslie's personal handle there. On the IG. We'd love to connect. Give us a follow, give us a like, give us a subscription.
Yes.
It's free. Not a lot's free anymore these days,
Yeah.
but a like, a follow, and a subscription is free.
Yes.
Helps us grow the community. And that's really what we're wanting to do is
Yes.
grow this community of people who are just trying to be good parents in a crazy world. So
And please share us with all your friends.
yeah, listen to it. We would really hope. We've kind of always said about this podcast, like, we want it more than anything to feel like you've just been invited to like sit at our table. You've been invited to sit in the living room, and so hopefully it sparks a lot of conversations. Listen to it with your partner, listen to it with a friend, share it with a friend, and yeah, hopefully you have great conversation. So we'd love to connect. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.